we said before we'd introduce people, we all know Chris, but I'll introduce Chris, second part of the DMR talk. And also on the side here, we've got the sign-up sheets for IOTA coming up, the Islands on the Air contest, if anybody's interested. Sideband and CW, a couple of weeks' time. Get yourselves signed in and book yourself a time slot. So, over to Chris.
And President's Day as well.
And oh yes, of course, there's an amendment, isn't there?
Yes, some alteration. Do you want to just mention that before we get started?
I'll come and sit down out of the way.
President's Day. Chris. Who's gone? Adam.
Adam? Yes.
President's Day.
Yes, indeed.
Do you want to just explain the...
Okay, yeah.
Thank you.
Bit short notice for getting people together for the 6th of August for a carvery, and also we've got a clash with it being on a Monday evening. And obviously then it's a bit difficult to attend the club or attend the carvery or whatever, so we decided probably it was the best thing to change plans slightly. So on the 6th of August the club will be open from 9 in the morning for anybody who wants to come down, if they're available during the day. Anybody who wants to come down, have a cup of tea, play radio, or even attack the many jobs that we've still got outstanding on the club premises, would be very, very welcome indeed. Be very happy to see you. In the evening what we'll do, we'll have a fish and chip supper at the club. We'll get enough people together, collect a £5 or so per head, whatever it is. We'll get the table set out in a nice way in the centre of the room, and we'll all enjoy a plate of fish and chips together and enjoy the rest of the evening. What we will do is we'll have a get together a bit later in the year at the carvery, at the hobby hall size hopefully, maybe in the autumn, about September or October, and we'll have an evening out that's not on a Monday. We'll pick another night, so it could be any night. I'm open to any suggestions people have as to which night they prefer. We've got plenty of time to sort it out, and we can go and have this get together on an evening, and I think that'll be nice too. Whether we want to go and have a meal, or whether people just want to join us, have a drink, you know, it'll be something different. But next year, hopefully, we should have the club in an even better state than we have it now. And next year we might be doing something completely different. We might be throwing it open to families and everything else to come up and see where their other halves and partners and whatever disappeared to. So anyway, that's
what I'll be top secret myself.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Don't be found.
I already know what you go.
Okay, right, get started. DMR talk number 2. Pleased to know this one. I've kept this one quite short for many reasons. It's a bit of a quicker one to cover, and I've not had much time this recently as well, so chuck my excuses in there. This one's mainly about using the Brandmeister network and then using an MD-380. Concentrating on the MD-380 because most people have an MD-380. It's very affordable radio. I think probably everybody in this room has got one or access to one. And if you understand an MD-380, chances are if you buy another set, there's an Anytone there, or a few of the other ones, some of the other brands that are floating around. If you can do it all on one of them, they're basically the same. They might operate slightly different, but everything means the same and pretty much works the same. Right, so I'll try and put a bit of recap in as we go along, but I think if anyone don't understand anything, just pipe up. So we've got a digital network from end user to end user. So what we've got to do now is get onto that network somehow. And 3 main ways to do that. And I've probably left one off because you can use simplex as well, so I'll just mention that one. Simplex is a point-to-point, obviously we've got to be in RF range. You get onto the network, so this is, if you're using Brandmeister, Phoenix, whichever of the DMR networks you're using a local repeater, very handy, going to have a much better coverage, an hotspot or a gateway. I'll explain these a bit more as we go through. So first off, Brandmeister repeater, and I touched on this last time, but just a quick skim over. On a repeater it's full duplex, so it allows us to have, very easy to have 2 slots using TDMA. And the general, this has changed a lot, and if you read a lot on the internet, as the network's progressed and more users have come along, things have changed, and there's quite a lot of readings and some very good things you can read, but they're quite outdated now as to how they operate. Slot 1 nowadays on a Brandmeister repeater, and certainly our local one, is in a local cluster. So ours is in the East Midlands, linked in with a few of the other East Midlands repeaters, and that's all you'll get on slot 1. Going back a few years, you used to get access to different talk groups on slot 1, but generally that's how it's still done. I'll stand corrected if anyone knows any different on that one, and there might still be some regional repeaters that are not in a cluster and they do something else with slot 1, but that's how it generally stands at the moment. And then slot 2 is used for reflectors, which we'll come on into in a minute. And the best place to get any information on how your local repeater works, or if you're travelling and you want to program another repeater and use a different repeater, then the best thing to do is check their web page for see what they do carry and what you can do with them, where you can link them to, etc. Next one's a hotspot. A hotspot is like this one here. Dave has got some good examples at the back there. He's got quite a few he's knocked together. This one literally is just not even cased or anything. It's just one of my ones that normally sits on the test bench. It's just a low power device. They normally average single figures milliwatts out. You get this one works on 2 meters or 70 centimeters at the minute. I've got it set up for 2 meters. And that can connect via Wi-Fi or Ethernet to your home network, to your work network. If you're staying in a hotel abroad, you can connect it to their Wi-Fi, which will allow you to take your radio with you and then get onto the network that way. You can also use smartphone. I know Dave, you've done smartphone quite a few times. You can either tether it using the USB as you would any other device to get internet, or make your smartphone a hotspot itself, a Wi-Fi hotspot, and connect it that way. They're only used for yourself. You put your call sign in, you put your DMR ID number in. They're only used for yourself. And you can have them set up however you want, and we'll go on to that in a minute. Later on, I'm going to show you that one in the second half of the talk when it comes to using the 380. And so that's quite handy. You can set it up for whereas your repeater will have a default reflector. In certain talk groups it won't allow. You're in control with one of these. It's your own bit of kit. A gateway. You might have heard people mention a gateway. A gateway is generally, like it says on there, a hotspot, but you're probably using a proper radio. I host one locally on UHF, Adam hosts one locally on VHF, and there's quite a few around the country, there's probably into the hundreds. It's a thing that's been around for a while because people also use them for other modes as well. You can get D-Star and Fusion ones, they can be multi-mode, Echo Link as well, you get Echo Link gateways. So it's almost the same as a hotspot, it's just got what Adam's saying, it's a hotspot with muscles. It's connected to a proper antenna and probably running a few watts ERP. You have to apply for an NOV, it's not something everyone can do. And then same again, it will be set up by the person that holds the NOV to carry certain talk groups and reflectors and things like that. So that's another good way of getting onto the network. So that's the 3 main ways of getting onto the network. Everybody happy with that so far? Yeah. Right, now we're moving on to the next bit. You've heard people mention talk groups and reflectors and all these things, and this might still be fairly confusing for a lot of people. Talk groups are virtual channels that exist within the network. The easiest way to sort of explain this is probably with a diagram, so I'm going to draw one on here. Right, so if you've got a talk group, so this is our talk group here, and that talk group exists within the network, which exists within the internet. So we say that's the internet, and this is our talk group. We'll call this talk group 91, which is the worldwide. And then so that's constantly being routed to whichever device is connected to that talk group. So going back now to the previous slides, we've got repeaters, hotspots, and gateways. So let's just say we've got Adam over here. So we've got a call sign. Oh, right, excuse my writing, it's been a long day. And then he's connecting in, say, via a VHF gateway. So let's just say that's VHF, so he's connecting to there. This is connected to the internet, and then if he's selected talk group 91, he's then joined onto that. So you might have another user on the other side of the world here, let's just say he's got a local repeater, so we'll just put big R there for repeater, and then we'll call this chap, I don't know, CT1 Alpha Alpha. So he's connecting via this repeater. Can everyone see this, by the way? Big enough for everybody? Yeah. And of course, if he selected talk group 91, or it defaults there, that's connected to talk group 91. And same again, you can have many people coming off however they want, via a repeater, via a hotspot, via a gateway, all connected to talk group 91. And then the DMR master, which runs the talk groups, will route the talk group 91 to any other masters, and in turn all these connect to that. Whole subject in its own self, but basically that's what's going on all the time. So you've got all these virtual channels floating around, and until they're connected to by, and if you remove these people here out of the link, there's no RF going around there at all, but the channel will still be routed if there's traffic. Okay, everybody happy with that? Yeah, and within there, that's just one talk group. You can have there's thousands of talk groups. You've got talk group 91, you can have 2350, this is Brandmeister as well, don't get confused with other networks. So you've got 2350, which is UK, so you could have another talk group. So then if this chap up here, this repeater here, could disconnect from that talk group, and then connect to that talk group. So then of course this chap over here, I'll remove the call sign, but Adam there, over there, is still connected to talk group 91, so he won't hear what this chap says there, because they're on a different talk group. So it's a bit of something to get your head round, but once you sort of, sometimes if you explain it a few different ways to people, sometimes one of those ways hopefully clicks and it makes sense. So you're accessing the network one way, so Sandra there, when she's using her MD-380, is going via our local repeater, but it all depends on what our local repeater's connected to at the time, whether she's hearing some worldwide chat, or whether she's hearing some UK chat, or could be connected to a chat channel where there's two people having a chat. It could be anywhere. I'm going to go on later to show you how to change that, so you can change it to wherever you want to be. Okay? Everybody happy with that?
Yes.
Yeah. Talk groups also. A gateway, a repeater, or a hotspot, you can add what you call a static talk group, which is anything he's ever heard on that talk group. Somebody else comes anywhere in the world, activates that talk group, comes on, keys up, then you can set your hotspot to send that to you, so you will hear that talk group, even if you've not selected it. And you can get dynamic talk groups, which is what's known as PTT activated, which again we'll show you in the second half, which is where if you've got your own hotspot there, you can select it as a contact on your radio, key up, and then that will activate that talk group, so you'll hear traffic coming through on that talk group. Well, one little thing I mentioned there's lots and lots of talk groups. Talk group 9 is an important one, because talk group 9 is a local talk group, and that won't be routed over the network. It just stays local, which makes it possible for you to use other features like a reflector, which we'll come on to explain in a minute, or even just if you wanted to use the DMR repeater as a conventional repeater, and you didn't want it to be routed out over the internet to the greater network, and you just say, let's think of an example, if it was Raynet, say, and they parked a mobile repeater on the top of the hill, and they didn't want everyone in the world to listen to what they were doing or have access to what they were doing, but they programmed all their sets up, and their few bodies on the ground there it will just act as a standard sort of digital repeater. Okay? So very often you'll have if you're using a repeater, you'll see talk group 9 come up quite a lot, because if you're using a reflector on a local repeater, you'll just be accessing talk group 9. Right, reflectors. This is what you're still trying to get rid of everyone's confusion between talk groups and reflectors. Reflectors, as it says there, can be linked to a talk group. It's a bit of reflector. Another word for reflector is probably like a chat room or a talk room, or even what we use on our club email and committee email. We use a reflector. Anything gets sent to that reflector, it gets rebroadcast, if you like, to anyone else on that reflector, bounced out, back out again. So a reflector can be linked to a talk group, and this is what causes a lot of confusion, because you've probably all heard, as you've been listening to Worldwide, some people will call through the Worldwide, put like an equivalent of a CQ out, however they choose to do that, and they'll say they're listening to talk group 91, or they'll probably say they're listening to Reflector 4639. 4629, 4629, confusing myself. And it's the same thing, because that reflector is linked to talk group 91. So if anything comes in on talk group 91, will also be rebroadcast, if you like, on that reflector. They could also be linked, they don't necessarily have to be linked to a talk group, they could be linked to another network, the Yaesu Fusion, D-Star, Echo Link, anything, probably some others as well, and there's probably a few other, some other networks as well, hybrid networks that can be linked across to a reflector. Or even to another mode, you could probably dial up a reflector that is linked to FM, so someone could be coming into a digital network from an FM radio and across. Sometimes frowned upon, but it is doable. Using reflectors. Sorry, moving on. Was everyone happy with reflectors? Yeah? Yeah? Good, I'll be testing you all later. Right. Using a reflector. And again, in the second half, we're going to actually physically do it. Grab some of you if you bought your own sets, you can do it whichever you want. To dial up a reflector, it's quite straightforward. You make well, there's several ways to do it, because you can store them as a contact, but the easiest way is to do it, to manually dial a private call. So, again, we'll show you how to do this in a minute. Reflector numbers normally start from 4,000 to 5,000 and run to 5,000. There are a few others again, but they're normally test ones or other things. An announcement will always be made after the reflector's been changed, just as a confirmation that you're in the right place. And then there's two other special commands. A 4,000 is to disconnect the reflector, which a lot of people think, well, why would you want to do that? One, if you just, again, wanted to use it as a private repeater, you could disconnect it, or use talk group 9, just on a repeater, just be relayed, just be repeated, if you like, without being routed. Or if you wanted to drive, say, a hotspot with a talk group instead of a reflector, you could disconnect the reflector, then PTT on a said talk group, and it will change to a talk group. If you turn your set on, and you think, oh blimey, what, I don't know where the repeater is, you can't hear nothing on there, you can send a 5,000, which is a status, and then it will come back and tell you which, what state the reflector is, where it's connected to, whether it's unlinked or whatever's going on. And a handy thing to know as well with reflectors is they will have a default reflector. So most UK Brandmeister repeaters will default to the UK calling 4400, which is also talk group 2350. They'll default back to there, and then you can, each one might have slightly individual settings, but the norm's probably about 15 minutes of non-activity, and it'll just turn back to default. Again, with your own hotspot, you can program it to what you want. If you prefer listening to worldwide traffic, you can leave it on a worldwide. If you prefer listening to any other language or any other country, you can set it to there. You can set it to default back to disconnected. You can set it to default back to UK. I normally leave mine on UK. You find if you leave it on worldwide and it's very, very busy, especially on like Saturday afternoon when they have the big call-in net and stuff, sometimes you can't get off there, you can't get in there to get it changed. Although with a hotspot there is another way to do that. You can log into the Brandmeister dashboard and change it. Okay, everybody happy with using reflectors? Like I say, we'll have a go at it in a bit. This one was just, well, I probably mentioned this already, it was reflector and talk group crossovers, which again gives you the same, is what I've already mentioned, sorry, but it gives you the same, some examples there of which talk groups link together to a reflector. And if you go on Brandmeister, you can pull off a big list of what is updated quite often. You can pull off a big list of which talk groups are linked to reflectors. Sometimes it's not always straightforward. they don't do a very good job of listing all of them sometimes, but they nearly all have one. Okay, right, I'm just going to do a short break now because I've got the toilet, and then when I come back we're going to do some MD-380. Okay?
Yeah,
come on, yeah.
That's so annoying.
Fantastic. Came on, I don't know.
Oh.
Does anyone want to grab a drink or anything?
Not one.
Yeah. That's right, Martin, is this just a switch on, Phil?
Yeah, yeah, just press the red button on the remote, or TV remote as well. Yeah, just press and hold the button on the front of the camera. It should be. That's it. That's it.
But not
Sorry. Technology, yeah. It's a good way of seeing the display without everyone crowding around the radio. Put the. Yes. Yeah, you want to stand it on something.
Who's that answer?
Oh, board rubber.
Oh, it's mine.
Yes.
It's a bit low. Oh. Yeah, perfect. Don't bang the table.
Yeah. Try and do this as steady as possible. Right, Dave, I'm going to rope in some assistance from the back here as well. Now, what have you got, Dave? UHF?
Sorry?
UHF, hotspot, yeah. You've got your MD-380? Yeah, right. So, first things first. We'll do talk groups first. This bit of the talk is completely unstructured and I'm just going to try to fumble through it, so if you pull me up I don't mind, do it. Right. You've all seen an MD-380? Alright, sorry you haven't. We'll show you one in a minute. We'll keep watching there. You have now. Look, right. I'm also assuming a few things here, like this. You probably flashed it with the firmware and it still contacts and stuff like that. But that will all make sense later on. I don't know. I've altered my time out. Right. First off, a few things. It depends how much you've been fiddling around with your set. Maybe you're one of these that plays around and pushes buttons and whatever, and work out a few things, because there's quite a few things that it can do. But I'll try to explain talk groups first. On the big screen is the dashboard for this hotspot. We're using PiStar. That's one of the many different. There's umpteen different things you can use on these things nowadays, and umpteen different brands. We covered that in the last talk. At the minute, I've got it set up to default to UK Reflector 4400. So all that traffic you're seeing down the call sign section there is, and they've got the time. So it's a little bit like a running log. You've got the log there of who's been on. Even on the right, it tells you duration they were on for, how much. It says loss on the end, almost on the end. That tells if it was a bit of a bad connection and they've lost some, whether it be RF or a dodgy Wi-Fi or something like that. It could be all sorts. And also, the important bit there tells you the target, talk group 9. So that means they're all coming in. They've probably all been. They're all aiming at. They've probably all been using a reflector, not necessarily, but they've all been connected on reflectors. Down the bottom here is our status. Is my status, should I say? Down the bottom here. So that's currently using talk group 9. No reflector. That means there's no current reflector connected. It's a little bit of a lie because I am connected to a reflector because it defaults to 4400, so it will be connected to 4400, which is where all these contacts have come from. So for me to change that reflector, so should I want to change that reflector to the worldwide, which if you remember from one of these slides down here. I'm going to confuse things if I bring this slide up. But it's 4629, talk group 91. So we've got two ways we can if we're now on talk group 9, which is what you would expect to see if you're using a reflector, and connected to the UK reflector 4400. If we're trying to get to the worldwide, there's two ways to go at it. We can either use talk group 91, or we can use reflector 4629. Both are exactly the same thing. So, because we're already on set up for reflector use, what I'm going to show you here is how to connect to it. So let's bring that on. Can't see it. Yeah. Right. So the first thing we're going to do, we're obviously on the hotspot free because I've got it saved in up there. This is a VHF set. That's why you're seeing the frequencies come up. So first thing is push the green button and go down to, and then green button again on contacts. And then you can, I'm going to manually dial it, but you can have it saved in your contacts list to save you remembering all the numbers and give it a fancy name. Push the green button again. So this time we want 4629. So once you've typed that in, you just hit the PTT. Just quickly like that.
Yeah, it's 4639.
Oh, 4639, sorry. Sorry. We've now got 4629, whatever that may be. I've got the digits mixed right. I've got it right this time. 4639. So we're on to the worldwide. Connected reflector's not changed yet, that's on still on 29, but it'll probably change on the next over. And you saw me pop up there. Let me just turn it down. You saw me pop up in two places. You saw me pop up in the local RF activity down the bottom, which was me, which should only be me on there because it's my hotspot. And then you saw me pop up at the top with the target 4639, so I'm trying to change to 4639, which it has. It's just not telling me that down there, which sometimes does happen. But we're hearing the traffic. Okay. And this would work in exactly the same way, even if you're using your hotspot or your repeater or anything like that. Now comes the fun part. Now we've got it on worldwide, trying to disconnect it from worldwide. Because on this one, I don't think I've added the API key at the top to disconnect it. So, yeah. I've got something for you, Sam. You got your cheat sheet. Yeah. So you'll see that on there. 4639 number 2. Yeah. What you can do with reflectors, although you can also store them as contacts in your memory, you can also add a keyboard shortcut. So on my sets normally, I don't normally add them, but it is easy to add them, and then you can make yourself a little cheat sheet where if you want worldwide's on number 2, and you can make this whatever you want. So you just hold in number 2 and it takes you straight to the contacts button. So all you need to do is hold down number 2, wait for it to change, bring up the worldwide contact, then hit the PTT. It's the same as manually typing in 4639. Let me just figure out to get off here a second. Now this is another quick lesson whilst we're on about it, is leaving big gaps in between overs, which we might even get a live lesson here all about it, self-explanation. If you've got a rag tube going on here and you're trying to get in and it's been quite frustrating. In fact, I did it on the way here. I was trying to call Adam on the way here, and there's a couple of people on there and they weren't leaving gaps in the overs, so you can't get in to change the reflector back to where you arranged to a sked or something like that. So do remember, it's not so bad if you're on a private reflector or talk loop that's out of the way and you're just having a good old chin wag. Fair enough, it's not too bad. But if you're on a worldwide or the UK or any of the major ones, you really want to leave a good 5 seconds plus maybe just to allow people in to get it to change. And you can set it up, like I mentioned a minute ago, you can set it up on the dashboard, which I haven't done on this one because this is not my normal hotspot, but leaves you a couple of tabs at the top where you can drop the QSO and drop dynamic talk groups and things like that. So it's actually quite handy, as I'm sure some of you have already found out. Let's try and get off here quickly. I mean, this gives. I'm just going to pick it up and try and do it. We're going to be here all night. This is also where a keyboard shortcut is good, because you can just hold down the key quickly in between them talking. And go to that. There you go, got it. Just got it off. Right, so all I did there was do a private call again to 4000, which, if you remember from the slide earlier, is a disconnect request. And then she came back. Actually, I might not do it this time because I am, but if I key up to that talk group to Reflector there 4000, not linked or unlinked, I've never been able to work out quite what she's saying. And then also, because we're there at the moment, because we're not linked at the minute, so no Reflector this time is accurate. Right, what I'm going to do this time now is, actually I'll come back and do another Reflector, or I can show anybody else afterwards if they're not happy or they want to have a go, or want to have a try and alter things. Now I'll show you how to get back to worldwide but using a talk group. And there's several ways that this can be achieved, like anything. There's normally more than one way. And one of the easiest ways is to program in a channel, a separate channel in your code plug, just with that talk group. So with talk group 91, and you can call it hotspot worldwide. Go to it, key it up. Or another way, which I like, is if you push the red button on the MD-380, gives you that screen there. This is one of Lorraine's favourite ones, isn't it? You like doing it all this way around, don't you?
And mine is slightly different, so I've got a different version of the tools.
Yeah, you find different. There's lots of different versions around and things you can alter.
Mine's on the hash button.
Yes,
As opposed to the red one.
Mine's on the red, but you'll find it on there somewhere.
Yeah.
And then if you scroll down to talk group, which is 9, which is what we've been using all this time for the reflectors, and we can alter that. I just scroll down and push the green button. Now I'm typing in 91. Green button again. Key it up. Talk group's now changed to 91. And we're now receiving worldwide traffic again. So we were in the same place, but doing it in 2 different ways. Which is, to me, how the system does confuse a lot of people and trip a lot of people up. So hopefully that has explained it for quite a few people. If you've heard, I know I've certainly heard it all day long. If I sit there listening to it in the background, I'll hear people that are calling on the UK, but they'll say G such and such and such and such, listening for any calls on talk group 2350, and then an hour later you might hear someone come on and say M6 such and such and such and such, listening for any calls on 4400. And it does at first trip a lot. It did certainly me when I first got into it. I thought, well, hang on a minute, has my radio changed in the last 10 minutes that I didn't know anything about? Is it changed to another channel? But it's just another way to get there. And like I say, talk groups have sort of lost a bit of popularity and more people use reflectors. But then I still talk to a lot of people. And even now on the target, look, the worldwide traffic's coming up 91, whereas before when we were on the reflector, it was firing into talk group 9 because that's the local one that reflector will use. Okay. Everybody happy with that one? Bear me a second. Now this one's not a good example because it's the VHF one. I've not got my call sign database on there. It's not got as much memory as the UHF one. But on this set, if you press, it might be different again depending on what firmware. But you can get access to the to the last heard, and basically like the list that's running down the middle there tells me all the call signs. Obviously my radio's coming up at the minute, as you can see, with DMR ID numbers because I've not got the database on, but if there's other radios that have. And if you push number 4 on mine, again might be different on different firmware versions, you get that list there. Whereas if I've got the contacts loaded on, then the DMR, instead of DMR IDs, you see call signs. So it's like exactly the same sort of list should correspond with that. Assuming you've got your time set correct and everything else, it should all correspond with that. So it's quite handy because if someone does call through, and you've missed the call sign or something like, oh, who was that? They're calling me or something like that, and you can bring up the last heard and you'll see or the network monitor, and you'll see who's called through. So it's quite a lot of people do use that feature. And you can also set it up sort of as there's no sort of standard setup now, as we've already found, because Lorraine's setup is different. Everyone will set up their own radio, how they want their radio set up. So let me go back there. I've got they are quite customizable in that. Well, that's how I normally have mine set up, just something quite straightforward. But you can have the last heard on there as well, so you can have a call sign pop up or a DMR ID of a last heard contact. So if someone calls CQ and you're half in the shack, half out, and you're like, well, I'll go back to them, but I didn't quite hear it. You can just bring it up, and there it is for you. So it's quite an handy little feature. Okay. Another thing on an MD-380 is, you've probably all heard it mentioned, is Promiscuous Mode. That's a popular one. Let me just go off to somewhere out of the way somewhere. Back on here. Now, Promiscuous Mode is another mode where it will basically open your receiver. So if you are on a talk group and you've selected talk group 91, but on that frequency that you're listening to, a different talk group is active, you wouldn't normally hear that talk group because you're not on it. It's still a channel. It's a virtual channel, remember, and you've not selected it. So by turning on Promiscuous Mode, you will hear any talk groups that are being fired on that frequency. Or even a private, what you call a private call, where you can dial someone directly out your contact list and have like a simplex conversation. You've turned Promiscuous on, it'll allow you to monitor that. It's good and it's bad. It can cause trouble, because if you're a sort of person that likes to make your own code plugs and program your own radio, if you've got Promiscuous Mode turned on, but you've got a setting wrong, of course you're going to hear the traffic. But it doesn't mean to say that you're then transmitting on the correct talk group. So if I've got a good example of this is on my gateway, UHF gateway, I had the talk group for the cluster, which is on slot 1 of the local repeater. I had that as a static talk group back in, so we've also got that and the reflector running 4400 for UK light calling channel. So what can happen is it will route both traffic through, because it's added on the gateway as a static group. So someone might put a call out on slot 1 of our local repeater, and then you can pick your radio up and not realise, but you've heard them, but you're not going to go back to. They're not going to. Thank you very much. Someone sent me a message, but you're not going to hear that. They're not going to hear you when you go back, because you're potentially not connected to that talk group, but you've heard them. So Promiscuous can cause quite a lot of issues, and very often some people have said, "Oh, can you look at the radio? I can hear everyone, but they can't hear me." And then they've somehow managed to select a talk group that's off in the middle of nowhere, but then they're listening to everyone else on another talk group. So it can be a little bit misleading sometimes. So you can go along and turn that off if you get a little bit too confused. Okay, everybody happy with that? Any questions? No? Does anybody want to go? Sandra?
No.
Not got any volunteers?
There's
No?
one thing I want to
Yeah.
know. You know, if you've near two people talking, Fred in America and Joe in England, and you want to change the reflectors so that you can talk,
Yeah.
will it affect them?
Not if they're not. Not if they're not. Well, you've just picked two there. So if you're on the worldwide you're listening to our repeater locally. Yeah. You're on our repeater.
Yeah.
One's in America, one's in France.
Yeah.
So you know they're not coming in via our repeater. So it wouldn't affect them. You would probably still have to wait for a gap in the traffic to dial up and change your reflector, but it won't affect them. The only time it would affect them is if Phil there's mobile in his car.
And he's on the same.
And he's using that repeater.
Right.
Yeah.
You
So
got me off.
and he's chatting to his friend in Scotland.
Right.
He's perhaps connected to 4404, I think it is, or 5 is it? 5, I think, is a Scottish calling channel. So they're on there maybe, and they're talking away, and you're thinking, oh no, I've got a sked with Jose,
Yeah.
other side of the world. But then, of course, Phil's going to have something to say to you because
And
he
of
just
course,
chopped him off.
it's
halfway
very
through.
difficult to know that they are local. as
Yes,
well.
yeah. You really got to have your listening ears on and listen. You can bring up the dashboard for the local repeater. And anyone can do this. This is not, you don't have to have the privilege to be able to do it or anything. Or so if we go on Brandmeister network. We'll get there in a minute. Here we go. And we go on click repeaters and go over to just going off the screen slightly. So we'll go for GB7LR. I can't see, is it come up? Yeah, there it is. We'll then click on there. And then when it does load, you will come up with somewhere over there, look, last heard. Populating, it normally does. There's been no one on one or the other. Normally click on the last heard and it will come up with a list of call signs that have used it locally and stuff like that, and the time, and whatever's up here, where it's going, what they're up to, all this sort of thing here. So then you'll be able to work out if someone is locally using it or not, because you may not be able to. Well, on DMR it's a little bit very different to like an FM box in that you can't just flip to. You can flip to the input and see if you can hear them. Chances are, if you're both hand portable other sides of the county, you're not going to hear them. Of course, with an FM box, you can hear them. So you can't hear them on the input, but you know they're using the box. So it's not being routed anywhere else. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if it was me, I would, you know, in the fear that I might get chucked off the repeater, I would normally try and announce that it's, you know, MD-380 mobile working through GB7.
Yeah, another way
so
to
that
do it.
anybody else listening who's listening to that repeater ain't just throwing me off whilst I'm in mid-contact with somebody else.
Yes.
Otherwise they won't know.
Yes, that's a good
So
one.
it
You
is
can
nice
add it on. Yeah.
to be able to announce that.
And to be fair, we're talking UHF repeaters. They've not got a huge coverage. We generally all know each other. And if you recognise that call sign, you've got to think, oh yeah, the chances are it's a local call sign.
Yeah.
I know them from the club. I know them from living in Leicester.
Yeah.
You're going to know they're sort of using that. You're going to have an inclination straight away.
Yeah, and
you
you've
know,
got the database as well, where you can see it's a Leicester station.
Yes, that's another good one. Yeah, on most sets.
I think it's a sort of courtesy thing as well, though. If there is a QSO in progress and you're not sure if they're local, ask.
Yeah.
Before, because you will get you will annoy people if you suddenly take their reflector out.
Yes.
Right. You don't want to go down it, do you?
You will, but at the same time, these repeaters are for everybody to use. There's umpteen people in the room that have probably hosted repeaters over the years and whatever. You want people to use them. So at the same time, they're there for you to use. Don't be scared to use it. Change it. If you want to change it, change it. If it's on UK and you want worldwide, put it there. You know, if someone's that bothered, I'm sure they can pipe up and say, sorry, I'll
put it back.
What's the worst that can happen is move it back. If you start getting that much squabbling or something, then chances are that the repeater keeper will just lock it onto a certain talk group or reflector, and that's it. So, and then also what I've described as well is, I know Adam's done this on his gateway, and repeaters do it, like LR will do it on a Saturday for the worldwide net. So you can set up timings when the repeater will change to a different reflector itself. And then like talk group one, slot one on LR is locked. If you scroll down to here, this also gives you frequencies and split and colour code details. But it also tells you there, look, as well. So reflector's currently 4400, and you change it in exactly the same way by making the private call. But on time slot 1, it's locked onto talk group 23590, which is the East Midlands talk group. Which, if I go back up, I won't do it, but if I go back up and put one of the other East Midlands repeaters in, on DMR Brandmeister, will also come up with the same talk group locked, because they're in the East Midlands cluster. So, at the same time, you've got to remember we've got 2 slots, so we're being a bit more efficient with the bandwidth. So, if Chris is driving around Leicester or East Midlands in the footprint of 23590 repeater group, I can be using them and talking to Phil. And then on slot 2, Sandra could go on to worldwide and talk to anybody else in the world, all are going on at the same time. So in effect, you still are getting 2 repeaters. And slot 1 is a little bit, in my experience locally, slot 1 is a little bit unutilised if you monitor it all day long, or even if you just go back through what's. Remember when I had the dashboard up and it tells you all the call signs list. You can scroll back, you can save it, you can scroll back through. Don't get much activity on slot 1, but it is very handy. Like I say, I don't. It's nice to listen to once or twice, but the net on a Saturday afternoon, I really can't abide, if I'm honest. It drives me mental. So I'd rather just go to slot 1 and you can put a call out and then perhaps have a chat to someone else driving around the county, or talk to your friend, or whatever you want to do. Then at the same time, that's just the repeater. At the same time, coming via an hotspot, you can go wherever you want, do whatever you want. So no one can really sort of govern that other than yourself. Okay. Everybody happy? Yeah.
I'm going to say, Chris, that this thing with the time slots, you know, where people are stuck on one and don't use the other.
Yeah.
This is something that really needs addressing, because you know, otherwise we're going to end up with a rusty dial syndrome where people stay on one time slot. You know, the network's far more than just one time slot, one channel, one repeater, one gateway. You know, it's all out there.
Yeah.
It's up to you to go out and find it.
Yes.
And, you know, more repeaters in this area than just LR, for instance.
Yeah.
That are also on the network and also coming up. And you know, the main thing with the time slots is to get the scanning thing added in your code plug. And if this hasn't already been done, when the time comes to do the talk on code plugs, we will address this.
Yeah.
And make sure everybody can hear both time slots. Saves a lot of finger work on the dial as well.
Yeah.
So.
There's quite a few. Adam's looked into a lot more features that we don't really use an awful lot on the Brandmeister network, or DMR in general. Things like roaming and things like that. You can set it to roaming, so it sort of listens out for all the other repeaters. And if you drive out of one and you're picking another one up stronger, you can do things like that. So there's a lot more things that can be done. And what we've got to remember is this is a good system, but it's been adapted. DMR in a lot of respects is still designed for PMR market, corporate markets where perhaps they've only got 50 radios, or perhaps they've got 10 multiple sites and they can connect them up and we can make private calls on the other time slot if they've got repeaters at each site, or send text messages and things like that. We've took the basics of it. And that's why it keeps evolving and it's still changing. And we've tried to fit however many registered DMR amateur users there are now, which is quite a lot now. I know Lorraine's always messing with databases and things. There's a lot of entries in there. So.
Really had a proper, I imagine it would be getting on towards 103,500.
Yes. Yeah. So that's a lot of users on. I mean, that's spread. Your DMR ID will work on any DMR network. So that's amateur network. That is. So that's. They may not all be on Brandmeister, or it may be spread across the other ones, but that's a lot of contacts using a system that was probably never really intended for that many contacts. So it does work well. It does fall over from time to time. You know, things go on and masters crash and things like that. And it does have glitches, but then it's all run by hobbyists and everything. So you've got to expect these things sometimes.
I have read somewhere that you're not supposed to do like private calling via the net, the Brandmeister network. Is that true, or can you do it?
As far as I know, you can. Yeah, I've never looked into it, whether it's frowned upon or not. There's on the Brandmeister website. There's lots of user guides. There's specific user guides for like 4400 saying leave big gaps. Most people ignore that one, I find. Leave big gaps so you can change. Keep the overs short because it's. And I've even heard arguments on monitoring 440. Some people have been there having a bit of a chin bag and talking away, and then someone's come in and said, "This is a calling channel, move off." But then they just keep if you at the time, and I think now it will be on there. There's a user policy, and it does say that you can have a conversation on there. They're just saying keep short overs and things like that.
I think where they go on about private calls, it's confusing it with motor owners' terminology because a private call to them is encrypted. So it's quite possible they've got the technology.
That of course is a breach of your licence.
We can't send an encrypted transmission without an NOV.
So,
So talk groups actually work. You could, because it's virtual, you can actually, as long as it's not already being used, you could actually put in a random kind of digits of numbers.
yeah, sure.
You know, because it is only just
Yeah.
virtual.
And if you've got Promiscuous Mode turned on, you'll still hear it. You still hear it. So.
I mean, in theory, that's what you do when you do a private call. Really, you're creating a room of just that just got the ID of the other user.
Which, of course, if you've got Promiscuous turned on, you'll hear both sides anyway.
Yeah, I think I was just. I'm not sure if you actually brought it up though, Chris. I'm sorry if I didn't.
No,
mention
that's all right.
But I think when you actually trying to dial into a talk group, you're actually going in as a rather than doing it as a private call. It is actually a group call.
Group call.
So you have to get, you know, if you're using reflectors, you need to obviously establish it with a private call. But using normal talk groups, you can call it up via the group call.
Yeah.
And that will work that way.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry if I didn't explain that one very well. Sometimes it's hard to get, especially when you understand something and you're trying to make other people understand it. It's hard for it to come across. Sometimes hearing it from someone else might do a better job of explaining it.
The other mind bender as well is when you go in and you request a status or you request to unlink, because you send that as a private call, and then the network sends a group call back to you.
Yes, yeah.
From the same thing.
Yes, yeah, and everybody hears that, but no one hears you sending the status and the request.
Why people get confused easily.
Yes,
It's easy.
When I first started, I got tripped up quickly between group call, private call. I was trying to activate talk groups using private call. Sometimes it let me do it, sometimes it won't let me do it, but it normally won't let you do it. So normally if you use a group call to a reflector, it still dials it up and lets you do it. That way round's not so bad. But yeah, it's very easy to get yourself in a big muddle, and can be quite awkward, and you can make loops round repeaters and do all sorts of things. A repeater generally shouldn't let you. Not every talk group, but a reflector normally has got a talk group attached to it, as we previously discussed. So the reflector number for the time slot 1 talk group 23590 is 4419. But that repeater should not let me dial up 4419, because then it's just making a big loop between slot 1 and slot 2. It's going to get itself in the right mix. Never tried it, but in theory, if you type in 4419 on slot 2, the logical thing you think is you're hearing that on both slots, but it don't. It gets itself in the right muddle. I've done it before on a full duplex hotspot, and it was a master reset job. It was unplug it quick. It wasn't good. And we still hear things like that sometimes. Yeah. You'll see an ID number up on the screen, but you won't hear audio or things like that, or you'll hear a very strange audio or a loop or something like that. And it's like a I don't know, digital version of feedback or something. You know, you've created a big loop where it's just the same thing just going around. And normally it is a case of whip the battery off, turn the set off.
The other one's like don't have two hotspots on the same frequency in the same area as well. So that has an interesting effect.
Yeah. I think one time as well, I think I fired up talk on slot 1, fired up talk group 91 on a full duplex hotspot, and then let me have the reflector as well by reflector on slot 2, and it started doing weird things. So it was a case of pull plug out before upsetting the world. Yeah. That's a lot of going back as well to the first half of the slideshow. That's a lot of it was why they changed the repeater model, and they stopped all the talk group. What you would do, talk group 1 on slot 1 would have fired up every repeater technically on the Brandmeister network if you keyed that up. And they found that was happening all too much and was a bit of a waste of resources. So that's why generally the new model went to slot 1 being locked in a cluster. I mean, I would, and like Adam stated, we are sort of underutilising slot 1, and it is somewhere else that you can all have a chat with, and especially if you're all talking local, that's what it's for, local chat. It's sort of more like you're using a traditional repeater when you're on that slot 1 is the new kind of model.
And I'm not sure many people actually do that. really.
No, I mean there's a few people around that use it locally. It's the same old few people that talk to each other.
Yeah, always
on slot one. I use it sometimes if I'm out and about and want to talk to someone. I'll say, "Oh, let's go to slot one." So it's saving you tying up the repeater on slot 2, which is changeable if there's nobody actually on it. So if I operate mobile in the van, and it's quite handy because you can jump on. Especially if like I say, if the local repeater's Saturday afternoon and it's on worldwide on the net, and you're not going to stand a chance of even changing the reflector there. So you can nip across to one and shout your mate down the road, or anywhere that's got coverage of the East Midlands cluster. I would like to see some more options on slot 1, as in perhaps you have access to some of the other clusters, or you could also go. I've messed around with a full duplex hotspot at home, so I've got slot 1 and slot 2. And I've had it set up in so many different ways. I've had all the UK stuff on slot 1, and then all the worldwide stuff on slot 2. So, and then added some of all the clusters static talk groups onto slot 1. So all that sits on slot 1. So you can hear pretty much all UK traffic on slot 1. Then go across to slot 2, and you can hear the worldwide. And I mean, to be fair, just the one worldwide talk group stroke reflector is enough because it's probably the busiest place to be on the network. But I mean, the good thing is it's amateur radio. Get on, configure it how you want, play around with it. You don't like it, mess around with it, change it for something else, reconfigure it. That's what it's all about. It's not. It's sort of it's the new tinkering, if you like. You don't have to build a set or put crystals in it and tune a set anymore. You just sit there on a computer writing a code plug or configuring your hotspot in your dashboard to run whichever channels you want. So, okay. Yeah, that concludes then. If there's no other questions, or if anyone wants to go on changing, doing anything, you're not quite sure, and you don't. I know there's not many of us here tonight, but you don't think I don't want to look at Wally and then ask now. Just come and have pick up the set and I'll talk you through it, or anyone else will. I'm sure they will. Okay.
Really.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.